So today I thought that we'd talk about trade, because one of the things that constantly comes up during the pre and post Brexit debate was that there's all these amazing markets that Britain can now get into now it's left the EU. Well, what your general man on the street, and we're going to do a very, very basic understanding into sort of world trade. So this is going to be very basic because a lot of people don't even seem to understand the basics, and even I've only got a basic grasp of, again, the basics. So I'm bound to get a lot of things wrong here, but hopefully this is a demonstration to show you that, well, distance does matter. Because one of the things that the Brexiteers have said was, oh, great, we can now go into the South American market, and we can go into the Indonesian market, and we can, get all this awesome stuff from Australia. And I don't seem to think they understand the concept of distance, because when you are talking about trade, distance matters. So what I've got here is a stack of 10 1-pence pieces to basically represent our trade. Now, if you're sending stuff to Europe, that pretty much stays the same. Remember, Europe's our biggest trade partner. That's not going to change. However, there will be massive changes if we leave the single market, and we don't know what negotiation's going to happen. So, a conservative effort, we're looking at about half. That's a conservative effort. If worse comes to worse, we might be looking at something like that. That's worst case scenario. So we currently have this, or roughly around about that, 100% trading with Europe. Now, trading with the United States, instantly take 2 off, it becomes that, not much difference. However, trade with South America becomes that. Trade with India becomes that. And finally, trade with Australia becomes that. Why? Because profit and logistics. And there's a whole other bunch of stuff that we could get into, but you're talking about sending goods halfway around the world and expecting to get a full return on them. That is not going to be the case. You are looking at a horrible case scenario where people have been horribly missold and, as we know, lied to about trade by people who know nothing about trade. So what can you do? Now, the instant thing is, you're trading with Australia, and as we said, that's the amount that really gets there when you're talking about profit. Well, can't we just simply make more stuff then and then end up with this? Problem is, you then flood the market, you then devalue your product. And remember, there is competition in that market as well. So even though, let's say, you end up boosting your trade to try and match it, to try and make up for that loss of increased distance, you then devalue your product. So then you're back down to there, and possibly even in a worse state, because then that's where you get another government, or that particular government might go, we don't like the fact that you're flooding our country with you know, this amount of cheap goods. We're going to now put a tariff on your goods. So instantly, again, you're back down to that. An example being Bush. During the Bush years, there was a huge tariff on imported steel into the United States. Now, Tony Blair managed to get rid of that for British steel, which again managed to increase that trade. And hopefully I'm starting to sink into you that there are huge and other massive, implications. It doesn't take one country to trade, it takes several, depending on goods, type of goods, different trade and regulations. And there are reasons why there are, specialists in certain trade laws in various different countries, because that's how complicated it is, that's how complicated it will get. And if you listen to what a lot of the Home Office has been saying, they said they've got to literally they do not have enough people to be able to go out and negotiate, and not only go out and negotiate, but actually trained up to negotiate at that level. So you're looking at a huge, huge danger for the UK. But of course, Brexit people believe, that regardless, trade will always be full and 100%. That's not the case. So hopefully you've enjoyed my little introduction to world trade and why distance matters.